Alright. For a tutorial, we're going to be skinning this squirrel out here. I already made some incisions around the legs. Hung it from a chain. This way it's a little bit easier to work down the skin. So I'm going to go through, show you how to skin the squirrel, strip the tail, and this is getting it ready to go off to a tannery if you want to preserve it. Also, if you want to do it as a taxidermy mount, you have to cut it a different way. This is just for a wall hanger. Already made the incision around the legs. I'm going to work your knife blade down on the inside of the legs here. You might want to work some of the skin around the ankle down about half an inch first, might make it a little bit easier to get down there. But now you can make that incision down the whole side of the leg. Once you get this loose here, pretty much could just peel the skin down. So we're going to do it with the opposite leg now. You'll see why we want to keep this incision on the inside legs, because also if you make it on the back side of legs, you're going to see some skin showing after it's tan. This way you just see the fur only. If you get some meat left on the skin, not a big deal because we're going to be fleshing that off later anyways. What you want to do is make sure both legs connect. So I'm going to get this off screen for a second, but make sure that this incision connects down between the genitals and the anal cavity. We made the incision between the genitals and the anal cavity. Got that connected, just trim up the skin around the legs. A lot of times it'll just pull off. Working our way up the back of the legs, right above the anal area, which we can just cut that right through like that. We don't need the butt. Okay, now through the back side of the legs, here's the tail. You want to get the knife blade carefully between the lower part of the backbone and the tail. You want to get big enough for your finger to go in, and kind of just pinch it with your fingers, work it down, slowly work your knife blade around. You want to get down usually about an inch. This will also make it a lot easier when you have a warm skin compared to a cold one. We work this thing down almost about 2 inches. Now you got the tail stripping tool here. You'll see there's 2 different holes in here. Larger hole, usually for coons, coyotes, larger animals. Smaller one usually works for your squirrels, and other small rodents, muskrats. If you want to keep tail, you usually don't. Anyways, take this, pinch it in here, grab onto the butt of the tail, and just pull it through. So all you do is pretty much just pinch this on the tailbone and slide it through. Now you've got that free. The skin should pretty much just peel down. I like to work with the blade just to make sure you don't accidentally tear the skin by pulling. Usually when it's on a warm animal like this one, which was just recently harvested within the last hour or less, you can pretty much just pull it off. But again, I still like to work with the blade. Careful if you are using the blade not to cut into the gut area. I have a little bit of bleeding here from the shot, but if you puncture the side here, you're going to get a lot of gut exposure, which is going to really reek and could possibly damage the skin if it gets any bodily juices onto the skin. You'll see where the shot went in. Be careful of this area. If you have a rag, plug it. Also, sometimes Q-tips work. I'm going to go fast enough that this probably won't really matter unless there's excessive bleed out here. Okay, now you can do this earlier or later. I prefer to do it at this point. It's harder when you're doing it later. But take your knife, do a ring around the paws. Since you're not going to be keeping the feet on this squirrel, we don't need to keep that area. You'll see why it's easier to do at this point than later. Like I said, you can always do it later, but just cut the foot off that one, but that's fine. Keep working the blade down here. This is when you're probably going to need your knife back again. If you were pulling by hand, you want to make sure you separate this area here. This is the tricky part because sometimes it's hard to see where the neck joins the head area. Here's the forearm. You want to just carefully slide this across the forearm without cutting into the skin. Cut down the base of the neck. Pretty soon we're going to be getting into the ear butts. So right now we're focusing on the shoulder. Cut the little straps of meat here that are holding the arms in place. Just work your knife blade in between the arm and the skin here. Don't mind the blood. It'll all get washed out later on. So you see the front arm exposed here now. Work on the back side. Make a little bit of a gap in there where you can poke your fingers through like this. And just pull through. Leg comes right out. Let's get it to reverse side. If you get any little holes in the skin, don't get too upset about it right now. It's not going to really show. If you want, you can go back and sew them up later if they are excessive. But anything small, that's, especially if it's on the belly side, it will not show after the tanning process, so you don't need to be overly concerned about it. Now we're working on the head area. You'll start to see some fatty tissue around the head here, usually especially in the late fall and winter. When they start to get the fat on them, you'll notice it a little bit more, especially around the cheek pockets. You notice like a little bit of a bulge here. Cut through that, that's the ear butt. Both sides do that. They'll free up the head. Just work this around. Kind of watch where you're going. You don't want to cut through any head areas because that's going to show if you cut on the skin. So you'll see the eyeball starting to show through. Just keep working along the back side of the skin. That way you don't cut a gouge out around the eyeballs. And just pinch the skin. Look at the base of the eyeballs. You'll see the cheek pockets here. Just slice through those. Work down the nose of the squirrel. And the jaw, just put your knife blade on the inside, work down at a 45-degree angle, and usually this should all cut free. Get your nose, chop that off, and you're done.